Dr. Elena Martinez wiped the sweat from her brow as she carefully brushed away centuries of dust from the metallic surface before her. The ruins of New Haven Colony had been silent for 300 years, but today they seemed to whisper with possibilities. Her artificial hand, a reminder of her own combat experience, gleamed in the dim light of the underground chamber as she worked. "Dr. Martinez, you need to see this," called out her research partner, Dr. James Chen, from the adjacent chamber. His voice carried an urgency she hadn't heard in months of excavation. Elena straightened up, her joints protesting after hours of careful archaeological work. The war with the Crixus Empire had forced humanity to search for advantages wherever they could find them, even in the ruins of humanity's failed first attempts at colonization. As she stepped into the chamber where James worked, she immediately understood his excitement. The wall before them was covered in holographic schematics, somehow still active after centuries of abandonment. But these weren't human designs. The flowing, organic patterns spoke of something far more advanced. Elena's Combat Artificer training kicked in immediately, recognizing weapon configurations unlike anything she'd ever encountered. "This is precursor tech," she breathed, her augmented eye automatically scanning and recording everything it saw. "But it's not like any of their defensive systems we've documented before. This is something else entirely." James nodded, his own cybernetic enhancements whirring as he processed the data. "The energy signatures are off the charts. Whatever this is, it's not just another shield generator or plasma cannon. This is something fundamental." Elena's hand traced the flowing lines of the schematics, her neural interface automatically beginning to decode the ancient symbols. As understanding dawned, her breath caught in her throat. "James, this isn't just a weapon. It's a way to manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. The precursors found a way to weaponize quantum entanglement." Before James could respond, their comms crackled to life. "Dr. Martinez, this is command. We're picking up multiple Crixus signatures entering the system. You have less than 30 minutes before they reach your position." Elena's mind raced. The Crixus had been pushing deeper into human space for months, their biological technology proving devastatingly effective against traditional defenses. If they found these schematics, it would be over. Humanity would face not just defeat, but extinction. "James, start downloading everything. I'll prep the charges." She was already moving, pulling demolition equipment from their packs. "If we can't get this out, we have to make sure they don't get it either." The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness as their equipment copied the ancient data. Elena's artificial hand trembled slightly as she placed the last charge, not from fear, but from the overwhelming weight of what they discovered. As they sprinted toward their shuttle, Elena clutched the data core to her chest. She could hear the distant rumble of Crixus ships entering the atmosphere, their organic hulls casting strange shadows through the clouds. "What do you think they used it for?" James asked as they strapped in, the shuttle's engines already spinning up to maximum power. Elena stared at the data core, remembering the final sections of the schematics she decoded. "I don't think they ever did. I think they were afraid to. And now we have to decide if we're going to make the same choice." The shuttle lifted off just as the first Crixus fighter screamed overhead. Behind them, the charges detonated, collapsing the ancient chamber and its secrets into dust. But the real burden now rested in Elena's hands, knowledge that could save humanity, or doom them all. As they broke atmosphere, Elena began planning her next steps. She would need resources, a secure facility, and a team she could trust absolutely. The schematics were incomplete, the precursors had left gaps, perhaps intentionally. Filling those gaps would require pushing the boundaries of human science and engineering. The war had already cost humanity dozens of worlds and billions of lives. The Crixus showed no signs of slowing their advance, their biological weapons evolving faster than human defenses could adapt. Now, in the ruins of humanity's past, they'd found Eve. The secure research facility deep within Mars Valles Marineris buzzed with activity. 3 months had passed since the discovery on New Haven, and Project Prometheus had drawn the brightest minds humanity had left. In the central laboratory, Elena studied the holographic projection of their prototype, her artificial hand manipulating the display with practiced precision. "The quantum matrix is still unstable," reported Dr. Maya Patel, their lead quantum physicist. Dark circles under her eyes testified to the endless hours the team had been putting in. "Every time we try to establish multiple entanglement points, the whole system threatens to collapse." Elena nodded, highlighting a section of the construct. "The precursors solved this somehow. Look at these resonance patterns, they found a way to maintain quantum coherence at a macroscopic scale. We're missing something fundamental." James Chen entered the lab, his normally calm demeanor disturbed. "We've got another problem. Security detected an attempted breach in the eastern sector. They caught the infiltrator, but..." He paused, his cybernetic eyes flickering. "It was one of our own. Lieutenant Santos. He was transmitting data to a Crixus relay." The news hit Elena like a physical blow. Santos had been with the project from the beginning, heading up their security protocols. If he was compromised, what else had been leaked? The Crixus were known for their biological infiltration techniques. Their ability to subtly alter and control human hosts had made them devastating opponents. "Lock down all research data," Elena ordered, already moving to secure their primary systems. "Maya, start a complete scan of all personnel. If they got to Santos, there might be others." The next hours were chaos. Every team member had to be verified, every system checked for tampering. Elena's artificial hand ached from the constant interface with security systems, a phantom pain her doctors had never been able to fully explain. As she worked, her mind kept returning to the prototype. They were close, so close, to cracking the precursor's quantum manipulation techniques. The weapon they were building wouldn't just change the war, it would change the fundamental rules of combat. The ability to create targeted quantum entanglement fields could render traditional defenses meaningless. "Dr. Martinez," Maya called out, her voice tight with excitement. "I think I found something. In the original schematics, we were reading them wrong. The precursors weren't trying to maintain multiple entanglement points. They were creating a cascade effect, using each point to stabilize the next." Elena rushed to Maya's station, her augmented eye rapidly processing the new data configuration. "Like a quantum chain reaction," she breathed. "That's why our tests kept failing. We were trying to hold everything stable at once, but we need to let it flow naturally." The solution began unfolding in her mind. Her combat experience merged with theoretical physics as she saw how the weapon would actually function. It wasn't just about creating entanglement fields, it was about understanding how they would move and spread in real combat conditions. "We need to rebuild the containment chamber. The whole approach needs to change." As the team reassembled, Elena felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. The Crixus infiltration attempt proved they were getting desperate. Intelligence suggested they were preparing for a major offensive, gathering their biological warships for what could be a final push toward Earth. The prototype took shape over the next weeks. They worked in shifts, sleeping in the lab when they had to. Elena's artificial hand became an extension of the construction process, its neural interface allowing her to manipulate the delicate quantum components with microscopic precision. Finally, after another sleepless night, Elena stepped back from the completed device. It was smaller than she'd expected, barely larger than a standard rifle. But contained within its housing was technology that would have seemed like magic even a decade ago. "Initial power-up sequence complete," Maya reported, her hands dancing over the control interface. "Quantum matrix is stable. Cascade effect is perfect. Elena, we did it. It's actually working." James studied the readings with a mixture of awe and concern. "The potential energy output is staggering. One shot from this could disable an entire Crixus warship. Or worse. Elena stared at their creation, remembering the fear she'd sensed in the precursor schematics. Now she understood why they'd left gaps in the design. They'd wanted whoever found it to prove they were ready for such power, to work for it, to understand it completely. Schedule a full demonstration for tomorrow, she ordered. But first, I want every security measure doubled. If the Crixus want this technology, they're going to have to go through all of us to get it. As her team dispersed to make preparations, Elena remained in the lab, watching the quantum fields shimmer within the prototype. They'd created something that could save humanity, or destroy it. Tomorrow would show them which. The Martian testing facility sprawled across the red desert, its reinforced bunkers barely visible against the landscape. Elena stood at the observation window, her artificial hand steady on the prototype weapon as the morning sun cast long shadows across the test range. Behind her, a collection of Earth's highest-ranking military officials murmured in anticipation. Target drones are in position, Maya reported from her station. We've replicated the molecular structure of Crixus bioarmor as closely as possible. If this works against these, it'll work against their ships. Admiral Chen, the head of Earth's defense force, stepped forward. Dr. Martinez, before we proceed, I need to understand exactly what we're about to witness. His weathered face showed the strain of too many defeats against the Crixus advance. Elena activated a holographic display, showing the weapon's internal workings. What you're about to see isn't just another energy weapon. This device creates a cascading field of quantum entanglement. When it hits a target, it forces all matter within the affected area to become quantum-locked with itself. In English, Doctor, the Admiral prompted. It turns the enemy's own mass against itself, Elena explained. Their bioarmor, their weapons, even their neural networks, everything becomes connected in ways that shouldn't be possible. The more complex their systems, the more devastating the effect. James checked the final safety protocols before giving Elena a nod. All systems are green. We're ready when you are. Elena raised the weapon, its weight surprisingly light for something so powerful. The quantum core hummed softly, barely audible even to her enhanced hearing. Through her augmented eye, she could see the invisible fields of possibility surrounding the barrel. Beginning test sequence in 3, 2, 1. She pulled the trigger. There was no beam of light, no explosive sound, just a subtle distortion in the air that rippled toward the first target drone. When it hit, the effect was unlike anything the observers had ever seen. The drone's bioarmor, a perfect replica of Crixus technology, began to shift and flow like liquid mercury. But instead of falling apart, it seemed to fold in on itself, every particle trying to occupy the same space as its neighbors. Within seconds, the entire structure had collapsed into a dense, twisted mass of matter. Holy shit, someone whispered behind her. Elena was already moving to the second test. This time, she adjusted the quantum cascade parameters, targeting a cluster of drones. The effect spread between them like a web of invisible lightning, each drone's collapse triggering reactions in its neighbors. But something unexpected happened. The quantum field didn't dissipate as their models had predicted. Instead, it began to grow, spreading beyond the initial target zone. Elena. Maya's voice was sharp with alarm. The cascade effect is self-sustaining. It's generating its own power from the collapsed matter. Shutdown sequence now. Elena barked, her artificial hand flying over the weapon's controls. Warning lights flashed across her augmented vision as the quantum field continued to expand. James rushed to the auxiliary control station. The field is starting to affect our monitoring equipment. We're losing sensor data. Elena made a split-second decision. She interfaced her artificial hand directly with the weapon's core, using her neural link to force a manual override. Pain shot through her arm as the quantum energies surged through her cybernetics, but she held on, directing the runaway reaction back into the weapon's containment systems. Slowly, agonizingly, the field began to contract. Elena felt something pop in her artificial hand, smelled burning circuitry, but she maintained the connection until the last traces of quantum distortion faded from the test range. The silence that followed was deafening. Admiral Chen was the first to speak. "Dr. Martinez, what exactly did we just witness?" Elena stared at the test range through the reinforced window. Where the target drones had been, there was now only a series of perfectly smooth craters, the sand and rock fused into glass by forces beyond normal physics. "We witnessed what the precursors were afraid of," she said quietly. "This weapon, it doesn't just destroy targets. It breaks the rules that hold matter together. And it wants to keep breaking them." Maya was already analyzing the test data, her face pale. "The energy readings are off the charts. If that field had continued to grow, I'm not sure we could have stopped it." "But you did stop it," the Admiral pointed out. "And what we saw, this could end the war. The Crixus wouldn't stand a chance against this technology." Elena flexed her damaged artificial hand, watching sparks dance between the fingers. "Sir, with all due respect, I don't think you understand. We didn't just build a weapon. We built something that could unravel the fabric of reality itself. One mistake, one miscalculation." She left the thought unfinished, but everyone in the room understood. They had created something that made nuclear weapons look like children's toys. The power to end the war was in their hands, but so was the power to end everything else. As medical teams arrived to treat her injured hand, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a line. The precursors had left gaps in their design not as a test, but as a warning. Now humanity had to decide if they were wise enough to handle what they'd built. The quantum weapon lay silent on its testing cradle, its simple exterior hiding forces that could reshape the universe. Tomorrow, they would have to decide what to do with it. But tonight, Elena knew sleep would not come easily to anyone who had witnessed its power. The emergency command center beneath Olympus Mons shook with another impact as Elena studied the tactical display. Hundreds of Crixus bioships filled the holographic projection of the solar system, their organic forms writhing through space like a swarm of deadly insects. Earth's defense fleet, already stretched thin, was crumbling under the assault. "We've lost contact with the Europa outpost," James reported, his cybernetic eyes flickering with incoming data streams. "The Titan colonies are going dark one by one. They're not just attacking, they're consuming everything in their path." Maya burst into the room, clutching a data pad. "The analysis is complete. The Crixus ships, they've evolved. Their bioarmor is now incorporating quantum-resistant structures. They must have learned something from Santos before we caught him." Elena's artificial hand, newly repaired after the weapon test, clenched involuntarily. On the main screen, Admiral Chen's weathered face appeared, his background filled with the chaos of Earth's primary command center. "Dr. Martinez, we're out of options," the Admiral's voice was grim. "The Crixus have launched what appears to be their entire species at us. Their ships are breeding as they advance. At their current rate, they'll reach Earth in less than 48 hours. Elena glanced at the quantum weapon, secured in its containment field nearby. After the test's near-disaster, they'd modified it extensively, adding layers of safeguards and control systems. But the fundamental danger remained. Once unleashed, the quantum cascade effect might not stop. "Sir, you don't understand what you're asking," Elena began, but the Admiral cut her off. "I understand perfectly, Doctor. I was there at the test. But we're not just fighting for military objectives anymore. This is extinction level. The Crixus aren't interested in conquest, they're transforming every world they touch into breeding grounds for more of their bioships." The command center trembled again as another defensive position fell. On the tactical display, the swarm of Crixus ships grew visibly larger as they reproduced, their biological technology converting captured resources into more weapons of war. "Elena," Maya said softly, "I've been running simulations. If we deploy the weapon at these coordinates, she highlighted a point in space, the quantum cascade should catch most of their fleet in the initial effect. Their ships are too densely packed to evade it. And if we can't control it? Elena demanded. If it keeps spreading like in the test? We could end up unraveling the entire solar system. James stepped forward, his expression resolute. I think I have a solution for that. He projected a new schematic. If we modify the containment field to create a quantum boundary, like a firebreak, we might be able to limit the cascade effect to a defined area. Elena studied the calculations, her augmented eye processing the complex quantum mathematics. It could work. Maybe. But they would only get one chance, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The tactical display updated again. The Crixus fleet had reached Saturn's orbit, their numbers now in the thousands. Behind them, the outer colonies were going silent one by one, transformed into alien incubators. Admiral Chen spoke again, his voice heavy with the weight of command. Dr. Martinez, I am formally ordering you to deploy the weapon. Whatever the risks, whatever the consequences, they're better than the certainty of what happens if we do nothing. Elena looked at her team. Maya, brilliant and dedicated, who had helped unlock the precursor's quantum secrets. James, steady and innovative, who had found ways to contain forces that shouldn't exist. They had built something that could save humanity, or end it. We'll need to move fast, she decided. Maya, start programming the quantum boundary parameters. James, prep the weapon for space deployment. We'll need to modify it for vacuum operation. As her team rushed to work, Elena accessed her neural interface, reviewing everything they knew about the weapon's capabilities. The precursors had feared this technology enough to hide it away. Now humanity would use it, not out of choice, but out of desperate necessity. Admiral, she said, I need you to understand something. Even with our safeguards, this weapon, it's going to change everything. Not just the war. The very nature of what's possible in our universe. Doctor, the Admiral replied softly, everything has already changed. We just haven't accepted it yet. Elena turned to the weapon, its quantum core pulsing with potential. In less than 2 days, they would either save humanity or join the precursors in extinction. As she began the modification process, she wondered if, somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the precursors were watching, waiting to see if humanity would prove wiser than they had been. The quantum weapon hummed beneath her touch, as if eager to unleash its reality-breaking power. Soon, it would have its chance. The observation deck of humanity's last orbital platform offered an unobstructed view of what many were now calling the quantum veil. Elena stood at the window, her artificial hand pressed against the reinforced glass as she watched the shimmering curtain of distorted spacetime that now divided the solar system. 6 months had passed since they'd deployed the weapon. 6 months since they'd changed the fundamental nature of reality itself. The latest probe results are in, Maya said, joining her at the window. The quantum physicist had barely slept in those 6 months, dedicated to understanding what they'd created. The boundary is stable. The cascade effect stopped exactly where we planned it to. Elena nodded silently. The weapon had worked better than they'd dared hope, and worse than they'd feared. When they'd activated it in the path of the Crixus fleet, the quantum cascade had torn through their bioships like they were made of paper. But it had also done something else, something they hadn't predicted. Any sign of the Crixus ships that escaped, she asked, though she already knew the answer. None, James replied, entering with a fresh batch of data. They've retreated beyond the Kuiper belt. From what we can tell, they're as afraid of the veil as we are. Maybe more. The quantum veil stretched from just beyond Mars' orbit to the asteroid belt, a permanent reminder of what they'd done. Within its boundaries, the normal laws of physics simply stopped working. Space and time became fluid, matter existed in all states simultaneously. Nothing could survive there, but nothing could cross it either. We've received the latest communication from the Europa colonies, James continued. They're calling it a miracle. The Crixus withdrawal has given them time to rebuild, strengthen their defenses. Earth is sending ships through the safe corridors we mapped around the Veil. Elena flexed her artificial hand, remembering the moment she'd activated the weapon. The quantum energies had surged through her neural interface, giving her a brief, terrifying glimpse of what they'd unleashed. In that moment, she'd understood why the precursors had hidden this technology away. Have you seen the latest theories from the quantum physics community? Maya asked, pulling up a holographic display. They think the Veil isn't just a barrier, it's a window into other possibilities. The quantum states we're observing, they suggest parallel realities bleeding through. The precursors knew, Elena said quietly. They knew it would do this. That's why they left gaps in the design, they wanted whoever found it to understand the full implications before using it. A group of scientists floated past the observation window in zero-gravity suits, taking readings of the Veil. Since its creation, Earth's scientific community had been transformed. The weapon hadn't just ended the war, it had forced humanity to confront new horizons of possibility. Admiral Chen's report came in this morning, James mentioned. The Crixus have sent envoys. They want to talk. Elena turned from the window, surprised. Talk. After everything they did? The Veil scared them, Maya explained. Their biological technology, their whole way of life, it's based on predictable physical laws. What we did, it showed them there are forces they can't control, can't adapt to. The implications slowly sank in. Humanity hadn't just won the war, they'd changed the rules of existence itself. The quantum veil stood as both barrier and bridge, a permanent reminder that there were some powers too great to be used as mere weapons. The UN is forming a new scientific council, James continued. They want you to lead it, Elena. Not just to study the veil, but to make sure nothing like this ever has to happen again. Elena touched her artificial hand to the window one last time, watching the quantum energies dance across the void. The weapon they built had saved humanity, but at a cost they were only beginning to understand. The solar system would never be the same, and neither would they. You know what's ironic, she said finally. The precursors built this as a weapon, but in the end, it became something else. A reminder that there are some boundaries we're not meant to cross, and some that we have to. Maya and James joined her at the window, the three of them watching as another research vessel approached the shimmering curtain of quantum energy. Beyond it, the stars seemed to twist and dance, as if seeing them through a lens of infinite possibilities. So, Maya asked, what do we tell them? The council, the Crixus, everyone who wants to know if we can do it again. Elena thought of the precursor ruins where this had all started, of the gaps they'd left in their design. She thought of the moment she'd activated the weapon, feeling reality itself bend under her command. And she thought of the future, not just humanity's, but all species who would have to learn to live with what they'd created. We tell them the truth, she said. That some creations aren't meant to be weapons or tools. They're meant to be warnings, reminders that the universe is bigger and stranger than we can imagine. And that sometimes, the greatest victory isn't in what we build. She paused, watching a ship disappear into one of the safe corridors through the veil, carrying hope and supplies to the outer colonies. But in knowing when to stop building. The quantum veil shimmered in space before them, a permanent monument to both humanity's ingenuity and its wisdom. They had created something that changed the universe, now they had to learn to live in the universe they'd changed.